Okay. Moving right ahead, we're going to move to our third policy of the morning, recommended draft policy 2018-3, remove reallocation requirements for residential market assignments. This is a recommended draft policy, so I'll do the staff introduction. This is a policy that originated in ARIN Policy Proposal 253. It became a draft policy in April of this year. It was recommended by adoption on 24th of July, 2018. It has not yet been presented at an ARIN meeting, but I know it's a recommended draft policy. So like all recommended draft policies, it could be recommended to the board for adoption after this very meeting. This could be the one meeting you get to see this. So, worth paying attention to. A.C. Shepherds, Joe Provo, and Amy Potter. Staff and legal review. The policy will eliminate the need for ISPs that have residential subscribers and have assigned address space to their access infrastructure to register these assignments with ARIN. ARIN Section 423731, residential market area, will be removed in its entirety. Has negligible impact on our registration services team, can be implemented as written. Does not create any material legal issue. Would have minimal resource impact, would occur within 3 months after ratification by updating the documents online and the staff training. There's no engineering work involved in implementing this. So I'll now have the Joe Provo come up and give the advisory council presentation. What's the right click? Goes right.
All right, there we go. Hello, hello, hello. We got the welcome screen. Awesome. Oh, well, skipped ahead. All right. Well, you got the introduction from Mr. Curran. It is relatively simple and straightforward in the fact that it is a long problem statement, however. This falls under the bucket of some of the work we've been doing to clean up and trim out some things that don't appear to apply anymore. I'm not going to just completely regurgitate the long problem statement. You can read it. It actually takes 2 slides. But it was raised as a portion of the community getting some extra effort for negligible gain at this point with the V4 pool, free pool exhausted. And just give you a second for the remainder of the problem statement here. So no new text is added. We are removing 4233731. We also are not regurgitating the whole text here on the slide. It is within your discussion guide, page 53. And slight history. We went to PPML in April. There was a modicum of positive support. And in July, the AC took that positive support to advance it. We did receive a critique to the overall concept, and there was no further public discussion, but I did directly reach out to the individual who provided that critique, and they continued to oppose it with, there was no real recourse to adjust it. So just sharing that for full disclosure. Any questions, comments? Hi, Kathy.
Hi. Do I go ahead? Kathy Aronson. I'm the reason that this policy exists because it was a deal with John Postel 100 years ago so that cable providers could get more address space. And I'd love that it would go away. So I'm super in support of this because it really isn't needed anymore.
You're not just in support, you're in super support.
Super duper support.
So, gets better. Thank you. Rear microphone, please.
Yes, Michael Pettimores again, Linux Magic. I'm opposed to this in the sense that a lot of the this designation that was being done was very helpful for really demonstrating for a lot of other uses which parts of their IP space was actually delegated to residential, because there are different threat vectors, etc., that are evidence between, say, for instance, their corporate networks and the IP addresses that they're using and assigning to residential customers versus, say, commercial customers. So I think it has a lot of value still today. And also, I'd like to have a little other point that when we talk about the word residential, I do think that it needs to be understood that some ISPs are actually now assigning space designated as residential in, say, /29s or 24s in larger segments. So I do think that there could use some tweaking on this, but I do think it's valuable policy to have in place.
Thank you. Over to the side microphone.
Kathleen Hunter, Comcast, ARIN AC candidate. I agree with this. Just because it says that we no longer have to do reallocations does not mean that I'm going to stop doing the reallocations. It's helpful for me as someone that manages the IP space to know where my space is, and for a lot of the community to know where that is. It helps sometimes with geolocation issues and things like that. So.
Thank you. Front microphone.
Owen DeLong, Sale Internet, ARIN-AC. The existing policy really has become an anachronism, and I don't think we're going to lose out on any useful reallocations by taking this remaining cruft out of the NRPM. I really think that that's kind of a red herring, and so I support the policy, and I think we should move it forward.
Thank you. Once again, if you wish to comment on this recommended draft policy, this is maybe your last opportunity, please approach your mic quickly, as I will be closing shortly. Rear microphone.
Mike Joseph, Mode. I actually have a few quick questions for staff.
Okay.
Initially, the policy is presented as a no-op, but the concern I have is that doesn't seem to actually be the case. One of the things that we were always able to do in a residential ISP context was express an assignment to market as fully allocated as long as that individual assignment met the utilization threshold. It created a two-tier measurement for assignments and utilization, and this seems to do away with that. So if you took it to the extreme, under current policy prior to the implementation of this proposed policy, an ISP's allocation could be considered utilized at 40%, but this would seem to take that requirement to 50%. Could staff please clarify if there's something in the NRPM that I'm missing?
John, is that for you or John or other John? Okay, can we take that in advisement? Did you have other questions?
Well, I'd like an answer.
Yeah, we are going to get you an answer.
All right.
We just need a minute to get that answer for you. So
Sure. And then the other question is related. Why hasn't this policy been useful in the transfer context? One of the justifications for this proposal has been that transfers no longer require allocation to market, but why don't they?
we have now two queued questions for staff. I know John in the back would like to address. Or
Generally, when you look at the requirements for transfer, the criteria are so much more generous that they can meet it without using the particular policy referenced. So,
does that
Okay,
answer
and
question?
then-
Does that answer question two?
I think so, but regarding to question number one?
We're coming on. He's working on it.
I paused to answer number two.
But just to be clear then, on regards to number two, you're suggesting that those ISPs seeking transfer approval are doing so without considering allocation to market at all and are justifying simply on individual customer utilization?
What their overall utilization meets the transfer requirements. We don't look at distinguishing one way or the other.
Okay. Can they elect to distinguish it based on assignment to market today?
If they asked us to, but if they don't, we process the application as you request it. If you come in and you say, we meet this according to overall utilization, then that's how we'll process it. If someone says, I meet this because of this particular aspect, then we will go look at that particular policy. Like if you say, I meet this according to third-party internet resale provisions, then we'll look against that. Otherwise, we'll use your overall utilization.
So Mike, if I ask you to wait at that microphone, do you have a comment by chance?
I
So
do,
we'll get to question one while we take
I'm
another
I'm helping John stall just because.
And we
the-
thank you.
The whole concept of this and the market, applying blocks to market was because the early CMTS gear was incredibly stupid. The minimum allocation you could give it was a /24, and you couldn't give it a bid aligned block of /24s, and you couldn't do a lot of things that you can do now. And so you had to give a ridiculously big block to a neighborhood that maybe only had 10 houses. And so there's a whole lot of ridiculous history because of ancient CMTS gear that made this happen. And it was our compromise that we could say, look, we have to give a /24 to a neighborhood that has 10 houses because that's the only block that we can configure. So, I don't, anyway, have you had enough time? Okay.
We thank you for that,
Ready?
Kathy.
No.
Could you elaborate?
Yes, the removal will not affect the ability of such parties to be able to transfer under the transfer policy. It is not materially, the subset of 40% is a subset of anyone who would qualify from what I can tell. I need to do a math proof to be sure, but I do not believe anyone removing this does not reduce the ability of anyone to do a transfer who would be doing it under the existing 8-4 policy.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, you've been up there so long, my mind has lost it. Are you in favor or opposed?
I don't take a position at this time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this recommended draft policy? Please approach a mic. If I do not see someone moving shortly, we will go to a poll. Yes, I can see my counters have taken cue. All right, microphones are closing and going once, twice, 3 times sold. We will thank Joe for the presentation and allow him to return. And we will now have a poll that we will try and hold as quickly as possible so that we can go to lunch. No? We're not going to be allowed to go to lunch early? No. I tried. This is a recommended draft policy, so we are asking for those that are willing to advance and those that are opposed to advancing. That will be the question. So, for those in the room, all those in favor of advancing ARIN-2018-3, remove reallocation requirements for residential market assignments, please raise your hand nice and high and keep it up high. And I'd ask remote participants to remotely participate at this time. One hand only, please. Double votes will be disqualified. The super support, then you have to stand while you're... Okay, you may lower. And now, all those opposed to advancing 2018-3, please raise your hand nice and high. Let's see, at least one. One moment, please. Oh, okay. All right, you may lower, and we'll just wait for the poll before having one more riveting presentation on internet number resource status. That's a cue for that presenter, since that person is now going to be the one standing between you and lunch and not me. And I see the envelope coming down the aisle. All right. On draft policy, recommended draft policy 2018-3, remove reallocation requirements for residential markets assignment, we're back up to 132. And 51 was in favor and 1 against, our biggest participation. Yes, thank you for that. That ends policy and for this block.